Good morning, friends. Today's title is Physician, Heal Thyself. You all know this is from the Bible. This month, the December is, so we're getting closer to Christmas and full of the thoughts of Jesus the Christ. All the whole land here, whole world in fact, rejoicing for the birth of Jesus. And this topic has been taken, but this physician, heal thyself, in the Bible were not really the message of Jesus. Jesus in fact quotes it as existing phrase that was there. And before he went to Nazareth, and in Nazareth he said he came from Capernaum. There is a small town called Capernaum on the bank of Sea of Galilee, that big lake. They call it sea because it's a lake of fresh water. And there, when he went there, he said, people here who actually had driven him out from the town, he said, the people will say, now, physician, heal thyself. He quotes it. The people will say to me the phrase, physician, heal thyself. And he explained that what that it means. He says, by that they will mean, show the miracles that you had shown, show the miracles here that you had shown in Capernaum, in another town near the Sea of Galilee. And this Nazareth is in the mountainous region, is a nice small town. Jesus, when he was ousted from his own home village of Nazareth, then he got to go to Sea of Galilee, and people there in Capernaum, that city, they accepted him. He gave talks in the synagogues there, which the people in his own hometown refused to accept him as some great savior or some great rabbi. But people there in Capernaum, they accepted. Not only that, they accepted him as a great person, and he got 5 of the 12 disciples, monastic disciples, he got in the town of Capernaum and around that town, including St. Peter. St. Peter, his brother, and other 2 brothers, and the tax collector, all were from near the town of Capernaum. We know there he showed miracles. Miracles, what he showed was like healing. One person was possessed by some evil spirit, and Jesus went and he drove out the spirit from that person. That person was healed. And another was Peter's own mother-in-law was having fever. She was sick. And Jesus does, and her fever was gone. So like those miracles, he was showing 3 or 4 or 5 kinds of miracles. In that area, he showed the miracles by 2 fish. He made many fishes, a few loaves. He could feed hundreds of people. Like that were some miracles that man in other place that there was less of wine in the ceremony of marriage, and he said that and water became like wine in the taverns. All were finished, and those were the miracles that were shown by Jesus. And there was one famous, one person was like paralytic and he couldn't go through the door. He was sent through the roof of the house, and all that happened in Capernaum. So when he went to Nazareth, where people already had disbelief on the greatness of Jesus, he said, people will say, physician, heal thyself. And he explains, by this they will mean, show the miracles that you have shown there. But Jesus didn't want to show miracle just for showing for his name and fame. He just showed, he must have done out of compassion, and as it happens in many cases that saints just do it by their own nature. Or might be someone was needed to just reveal himself, his greatness. Ordinary people can't understand the greatness of the person unless they see some extraordinary in the person. So this might be the extraordinary thing, just he wanted to reveal who was he really. And these might be the reasons. But the phrase that he said, physician, cure yourself, doctor, cure yourself, it has 2 meanings. This proverb has 2 meanings. One is, preach what you practice. You say the thing which you don't really practice, it is not in your heart, and you start saying that, it has no effect in that. It will be useless. So if a doctor himself is patient, how will he treat others? So he says, take this medicine and it will be cured. Before that, he should himself take the medicine and cure himself, and then the people will have belief. Otherwise, why will people accept his message or his advice? So the authority comes when what you say is already in you. Already you have practiced that and you have got it. Then only the power comes in your word, and the authority to speak that comes, and people will listen and follow that. One is that. Preach what you practice. Only that you preach. Only that you say. If you can't speak truth yourself, and you say to your son and daughter and children, you should speak the truth. Don't lie to your parents. And the small kid knows, he often tells lies. I found he tells lies to father, tells lies to my mother, and mother sometimes hides the thing from the father. So the children are very wise. They just don't speak, but they observe a lot. So when you say you should not tell lies to parents, I am your father. But he says, in the mind, he says, father, but I have seen you how you tell lies to my mom. So that doesn't work. That's why the child doesn't say it through words, but he in the mind, he is saying the same thing what Jesus said. Quoting this, people would say, physician, heal thyself. That the child says to parents. Swami Vivekananda, this phrase he made into his famous quotation, be and make. These two things are needed. We are always upon more emphasis on be and make it on be. First, Gandhi also said, be the change that you want to see in the world. You want the world to be a better place, you want the world to be truthful, honest. That all those things that you want to see outside in the world, first you be that change. Bring those changes in you. That is what be. And then only you can make. So emphasis on Swamiji's message is on be. Physician, heal thyself. Be equipped of the thing that you are saying. Be full of the thoughts that you want to be practiced by others. You practice yourself. Otherwise those words become futile. It doesn't go to deaf ears. In fact, you are talking like a dumb person. If dumb person talks, then how the ears will hear? Everybody is deaf that time. So when we say, my advice went to deaf ears, how was the advice? Were you really eloquent, or you were a dumb person speaking? Your words didn't have any meaning because you didn't practice yourself what you spoke. Another aspect of this proverb is attend to one's own defects rather than criticizing defects in others. First is good thing you have in yourself, and that is healing yourself, and then you practice that, you speak that, then you treat others, then you cure others. First that. Another is lot of disease you have, defects, lot of problems you have, and you don't see those. You see defects in other people around. So physician, heal thyself also means first you get rid of whatever wrong you have. Then only you have right to speak about that to others. If you speak about defects of removing defect to others, for it will be ineffective. So before finding defects in others, try to look into you. Whether you have a right to speak that. Whether you have a right to say to other person, don't get angry. Be always calm and peaceful. Have you right? Have you conquered yourself the anger? Then only you can speak. Then the person who was angry could say, physician, heal thyself. Doctor, cure yourself. Because I have found getting angry all the time. You yourself cannot control yourself. And you are giving me lessons. It doesn't accept at all. In the Gospel, we have a beautiful story of how one should practice what one preaches or teaches. One is the famous story of jar of molasses. Molasses is, we all know, is like a jaggery, liquid jaggery that is kept in the house. It is in fact the physician himself. So there was a physician, our Vaidya, the Indian doctors. So patient comes from the village and he had some problem with his body, and he speaks about this problem. Physician said, I can't prescribe you medicine today, come tomorrow. The patient goes back to his home without getting any medicine and comes next day walking again for a few hours and comes again. The doctor again then says, oh, for your disease, the problem with you is lot of taking molasses. The refined sugar was not there. That was the means of sugar. The sugar syrup was condensed and it became like molasses. He says, don't take molasses. Give up molasses. Don't take sugar. So patient also was surprised. This he could say yesterday what he had to meditate to say this. One night he meditated and found out the medicine that he should not take molasses. He knew medicine. The other person who was with him was surprised to giving this trouble to the common patient, asking him to go back home the previous day, again coming back. He was already a patient. He could have given this advice yesterday itself. Why he had to call today again? So that gentleman asked this doctor, Doctor, may I ask you a question? Why didn't you give this advice yesterday itself? You could have prescribed yesterday itself that he should not take molasses. He should not take sugar. Then the doctor said, I have a jar of molasses near the entrance. And if I had said yesterday, don't take molasses, the patient would not agree. If I said molasses, sugar is bad for health, should not take this. He would say, oh, doctor himself is having the molasses and asking me to do that. He is not practicing what he does. So that's why it would have been ineffective and he would not have given up. He would have doubt in my words. So I should at least have hidden that. And when he went out, then I hid that, removed that jar of molasses from the near entrance. Then only I had the right to speak so that he is convinced that it's bad. So like that, practicing yourself what you speak. Not that he had to give up molasses, because molasses was troublesome, or it was a thing that would create problem in the patient, not in the doctor. But doctor has to convince the patient that molasses is not good. It's not near there. If he enjoys himself, that will not be there. In Sri Ramakrishna's case himself, Sri Ramakrishna spoke so much about self-control. You see. And when you speak that this self-control, brahmacharya, is very important for spiritual life. And then the student understand that. And once what happened, Sri Ramakrishna went at night and one of his disciples was there, Jogi Maharaj. So Sri Ramakrishna went on, Jogi Maharaj's mind somehow thought, oh, where did he go? Holy Mother is there, does he speak something and he doesn't practice that? So he had that doubt enter. Sometimes the doubts are such things, they just enter from nowhere. How did it enter to that young man who was so pure? And Sri Ramakrishna, he didn't find Sri Ramakrishna when he went. He vanished, and Holy Mother's house was very near Sri Ramakrishna's room. And he waited there, he must have gone inside and talking with Holy Mother. He preaches all about that to us and doesn't practice himself. When he was waiting there, he found Sri Ramakrishna coming from the pine grove. He had gone to answer the call of the nature. Jogi Maharaj was so much ashamed with his own thoughts and doubts. And when Sri Ramakrishna saw him waiting, he understood the thing. And that's why he said, you have done the right thing, don't feel ashamed. You should see a sadhu not only during daytime, see him night time also. Observe his life, that what he preaches, does he practice? If he doesn't practice, his words are of no use. It has no power. You should reject that type of sadhu. So you have to do the right thing, testing, understand. You should find that there is absolute purity in what this person is. People should be convinced if anything doubt arises. So that's why he said that, test me like a coin changer, test the coin, whether it is the right type or fake coin. So test me. He was ready, open every time, all the time. You can test him any time. That was Sri Ramakrishna. He said about another story of Bhagavad Pandit, and someone was searching for a scholar who could explain the things of the Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavatam, there is the story of a lot of knowledge, of course, and most of it is about devotion to God. Devotion to God is the supreme, When one gives up everything else and is 100% devoted to God, only in his life or her life it is God and God alone. That is the gist of Bhagavatam. And a person who had asked that, can you find someone who can explain the verses of the Bhagavatam? He said, the person served and reported back that, yes, I found a Pandit who is very learned. He is thorough in Sanskrit and explains very nicely. So he asked, can you ask him to come and teach me Bhagavatam? I'm very interested to learn what is written there. This gentleman says, I will try to find out whether he can come. So he went there and talked with him and came back to this person who was interested in learning Bhagavatam from that scholar, that Pandit. And he said, I'm sorry, that Pandit is a little busy. He will come when his work is finished. Why is he busy? He said, oh, he has one plowing bullocks. He has to look after that. So he cannot come when he has to take care of those things. He cannot come right now, but he will come after attending care. This person said, I don't want to learn Bhagavatam from a person who is busy in taking care of his plowing bullocks. Bullocks is plow. Hele Guru, that is the term in Bengali. So why does he say? Because that Pandit himself has not imbibed the spirit of Bhagavatam, that God, devotion to God is the prime thing. And he is too much in, this is only the symbol, that he is busy in tending his bullocks for plowing the field. It's just a symbol. It means he is more engrossed in worldly affairs than in love of God. So what will he preach? He has to learn more than preaching. So his preaching will not be really effective. He said, I don't want to learn devotion to God from someone who himself is not soaked in that devotion, who is busy in worldly matters. So they are also, come physician, heal thyself. Let him heal himself. Let him be absorbed, and only then he will come and be able to speak. There is another story of Bhagavad Pandit in Gospel. One king was there. He was very interested in learning the content of the Bhagavatam. And Bhagavatam is a wonderful scripture. It is the highest scripture of the Vaishnavas. Those who follow the Vaishnava, the worship of Vishnu, they consider Bhagavatam as the main thing. Like the Vedantis, they think of the Upanishads as the highest thing. The Vaishnava, they say about the Bhagavatam and the Gita, they don't talk much about the Upanishads. Because there is the story of loving God, and Vaishnavism is about all loving God to the incarnation of Vishnu, and mostly it is Krishna devotee. That is all written in the Dasamiskanda, it's all about Krishna. 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. And the person came and he was explaining to the king, that Pandit, and about the Bhagavatam, that how much you have to learn, love God. Love of God should be the supreme in your life. He used to say very eloquent words. And after saying all those things about loving God and being self-controlled and focusing on this love and crying in the love name of God, after he used to talk a lot and lesson finished, after that the Pandit used to ask the king, have you understood what I said? The king would reply, Pandit, you understand yourself first. Next day again, he comes and then gives the class, and after that he says, could you follow that what I spoke today? Is it clear? Am I clear? Did you understand? Pandit, you understand first yourself. Every day he was saying, Pandit, you first understand. Pandit could not argue with the king, but he was always doubting, what does he mean? I am explaining in such a good way every word that is written in the Bhagavatam in Sanskrit. I am explaining, exposing everything I am doing. Why the king says daily that thing, Pandit, first, you first understand? Why does he say that? I understand everything that is explained. So after this thinking, after a few months of teaching, and every day the king saying, Pandit, first you understand. Then he thought, one day, am I really into the thing that I speak about, the love of God? Is God the prime thing in my life? Is everything else is subordinate and secondary in my life? Suddenly it flashed to him. He was a Pandit, he had read a lot, and one day he puts a towel, Sri Ramakrishna says, on his shoulder and renounces the world, goes in the pursuit of God realization and sends message to the king, tell him that I have understood now. So that is about heal thyself. Doctor or physician, heal thyself is that. What you are preaching about renouncing everything for the sake of God, that is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, and you are yourself not practicing that, then how those words will be effective? That's what king wanted him to be soaked in that. It's the extreme case that renunciation, we often are afraid, the householders, how this renunciation, giving of my family and hearth and home is the only way to love God. So this is one example given by Sri Ramakrishna, mentioned in some books, it might be there. But the thing is, do we keep, as a householder who seeks spiritual progress, we have to have priority in our life. Is God our priority? Is spiritual progress our priority in life? Do we give it the highest importance? That is very important in our life. Unless we make the spiritual life at the top of our life, that is the most important thing. So then there will be no progress in life. We don't have to give up the world as such physically, but of course when it comes to matter of spiritual practice, we have to see that it gains the foremost position in our daily life. That only is the way to progress. Why the words of the saints are so powerful? Saints say something and it becomes powerful. They say, yesterday some people came and they asked something. Generally they go to some saint and ask the solution of that. The person says, holy man says, do this, it will happen to you. Why they feel so assured? Because the people, they have the power of their purity and practice, that they feel that it will work because they have practiced, they are pure enough to speak that way. So often people ask suggestions from the holy persons. So I am in this problem, what should I do? There is one temple in Karnataka, there is a seat, traditionally it's coming, Manjunath Shiva is the temple there. People go there and there is a person who takes care. And when there is dispute in the society, in the house, they go to him and ask for the solution. And whatever that person says, they don't go to court. Whatever that person says, they agree, both parties agree. Because they think that this person is close to God and whatever he says is the message of God. And we agree to that. Like that, the authority comes when there is purity. Swami Vivekananda's, if you try to think, impact of Swami Vivekananda on his audience. He said that when he used to speak about the purity, about the reality of God, about the truth of the presence of God, he said that I could feel that their mind has come up and the whole audience could feel that they are spirits, that they are closer to God, that their mind was lifted up. How it could be possible? Because Swami Vivekananda's mind itself was so high and he had the power to touch the mind of others. That is given to very few people because of that. And that he could have the influence on the mind of ordinary people, that by being near in his presence and listening to his lecture, and he had so much attractive power that her full mind was absorbed what he was speaking, they used to have mental status raised. Why did the whole India, when there was freedom movement, they say the freedom fighters that used to have complete works, volumes of complete works in their hands. And reading Swami Vivekananda, they started loving their country and were ready to sacrifice themselves. How this power came from Swami Vivekananda's books? Because of the love of Swami Vivekananda in his own heart for the country, that love was transmitted through his writings. When a person speaks and you come to the presence of that person, there is definitely a greater power coming. And the power, when it is generated, is so permanent, indelible, that it goes in time and little suggestion, even through the pages of books. When you read the words, those power are there. And those power could be absorbed and be effective. And those effects are seen in the freedom fighters. When they read Swami Vivekananda, they are ready to sacrifice their lives and work for the liberation of the country. We have a wonderful example of Mahatma Gandhi. He came to Berul Math and he said that when I went through his works, love for my country raised thousandfold. Mahatma Gandhi himself loved his country. And how did he express his love for his country? How did he live? Heal thyself, he knew that. He had read the Bible, he knew the psychology of the people. That's why to become the leader of the nation, whole nation has to accept him. So what did he do? He lived like a simplest person. Very ordinary simplest person. He gave up everything. All comfort of life. He used to put on a simple dress like a poorest person. His dhoti was even up to the knees, like a laborer, like a farmer. Why did he have to do that? That heal thyself, people may not say, but it is in the heart. They see the person. When you say, I am with you, my brother, oh poor person, oh laborers, oh workers, I am one of you, I am always with you. Then people observe them. Is he really one of us? How does he travel? How does he live? What does he eat? Everything in Mahatma Gandhi's life was of the level of a simplest person. His dress, his traveling, his living, his eating, everything was the simplest, and the whole nation accepted him as the leader. Whatever he said, the whole country accepted. Whatever he planned, whole country followed, and there was the freedom. Ultimately, he could make the India free from a mighty British power. What that came from? That came from his living like the common person. We know Buddha. Buddha taught about love all. So would people listen to him? Would people listen to him if he had not practiced himself? If he had no that love himself? He goes to a criminal, very cruel person, and he just says, why you have to be so cruel? Why you kill people? Why don't you love others? And that person who used to kill person just one day before perhaps, in Buddha's place, when Buddha said this thing, he gives up his sword and prostrates at the feet of Buddha and said, make me your disciple. What is that power? That power is the love in the heart of Buddha, which is all encompassing, no cruelty, no hatred, all compassion and love, and that cruel person follows. Because Buddha practiced what he said. So, Sri Ramakrishna's one saying is, make your mind and your speech one. What you think, that you speak. And what you think, that you practice. Only then your speech will gain power. Your action, your thoughts, and your speech should be in unison. They should be all harmonized. He said, Sri Ramakrishna said, make mind and speech one. Often it doesn't happen. If we look into our own lives, it doesn't happen. We say one thing and we really are not convinced of that. At least we are not convinced in such a level that we start that practicing and making practical in our life. And that doesn't work. That really doesn't work. Christ had the power to say. Christ had the power to say. He had the authority to say. Once someone slaps on your right cheek, turn left to him. He had that power because he himself did. Forgiveness in him was he always practiced. Jesus Christ had that thing. His love for everyone. He said, love thy neighbor as thyself. And love even your enemy. And what the ancient scripture said, eye for an eye, have forgiveness. He himself forgave everything. Even the person Judas, who had gone to inform about him, who was going to be captured, did he have any trace of hatred for that person? When he came to embrace him, Christ went. Christ never had any remorse towards anyone. There was no trace of hatred towards anyone. How could he forgive that? And that person had the right to say, forgive all, forgive even your enemy, forgive those who hurt you, because he himself did it. And that words become so powerful for thousands of years. People try to emulate that, try to practice that, because Jesus said what he practiced fully, absolutely. Otherwise, how could he say to people who are crucifying him without any fault, Lord, Father, forgive them. Forgive them. He himself has forgiven. He thinks if his Father in heaven, when he said them, he doesn't want even to be that. He wants to intervene in the law of karma of those people. How much compassion can you imagine? He wants to intervene and say to God, Lord, please forgive them. I have totally forgiven. And you forgive them, don't be angry on them. Let their law of karma be ineffective for me giving me punishment. What a great compassion had this Jesus Christ. And that's why Jesus Christ is worshipped by such a great humanity in the world. And reading his life, how many people are inspired, irrespective of even religion. Jesus is common to all humanity. All these great persons are our common property. It's not only for Christians. Jesus is for all. Sri Ramakrishna is not only for the followers of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna is for whole humanity. All these great teachers are the teachers of mankind. Jagat Guru. And not for one particular community. If you can find them with one particular community, then it will be our narrow, short-sightedness. Regarding not finding fault, Christ and Holy Mother. This is the month of the birth of Holy Mother also. Holy Mother's birthday, according to Tithi, is on 24th of December. In fact, the same day, the Christ was born at night, 24th December, and this year, according to lunar calendar, Holy Mother's birth Tithi, Janma Tithi, falls on 24th of December, same day. They have so much in common, this Christ and Holy Mother. You see, and Christ also said, don't find defects with others. He said that. You try to see mote in the eye of others, what defect, other small thing someone has done, and you see, oh, that person is defective, that person is greedy, that person's behavior is bad, oh, he became very emotional. And what about you? Have you ever seen about yourself, how emotional you are? How quickly angry and upset you become? How egoistic you yourself are? And he says, you see the mote in others' eyes, and don't look a beam in your own eye. There are greater defects in yourself, and you are not looking to that. What you see outside, there is greater defect in yourself. There is a beam, big log of wood in your eye, and a small speck of dust in others. You are looking to the dust in others, and you are not thinking about yourself. Try to make yourself perfect. Remove your own defect. Look into your inner self, and you will find there are so many things that I need to improve myself. What I see outside, there is a lot much bigger in yourself. You never look into yourself and you don't find. You only see outside that things are there. So, Jesus said, remove the beam of defects, the bag of defects in your own self, in your own being, in your own mind, impurity. And then you will find whatever little is there, there is outside little. The more we become pure, the psychology says, the more you become pure, the less you see defects in others. And when we are perfectly pure, you don't find anyone who could be hated. All there is only love. You don't find any defects become like, then you become compassionate. In fact, instead of becoming hateful, you become compassionate. Then comes, oh, that person suffers because of anger. And that person doesn't really hurt you. You have to be pure for that self. You yourself are free from anger and hatred and jealousy and greed. Then you can find other person less having that. If you have more of those things, you find more in others. And all are because of you have yourself big beam in your eye, big defect. So first remove the beam of your eye. then think about the mote in others. Don't see that. Holy Mother said also, do not find fault with others. So, should not find fault? No, finding fault is a great art. It is very important. But not in others, in yourself. Try to find what are my defects. They say, when you go at night and have an account of whole day, how you spent, what did you do, how you behaved, how you treated, was there any defect? That's the way we can progress and make ourselves better and better. So, was there wrong in me? What I did with that person? Often we try to justify ourselves. This ego thing is so much in us. I am the best person, what I do is all right, I cannot do anything wrong. Those all are the things we impose. And we have to be very impartial to think of ourselves. Did I do right that thing? Was there many mistakes? Impartially we should separate the ego and try to judge ourselves. If we could find defect in ourselves, there is every chance that we will be freed from defects. Find defects, but in others. Find defect in yourself. The more the defect that is in you is removed by your practice, the less defect you find in others. That's what Holy Mother says. And that is the only way to peace. When you find nobody is anything that is short of you. In Hindi couplet also it is there. I tried to find a bad person in the world who is really bad. Bura dekhana main chala, Kabir Das. And he says, I tried to find what is that this person has for defect, this person defect. And finally I was surprised to find the worst man in this world, I will find defects, full of defects, is myself. Bura dekhana main chala, to mujhse bura na ko. There are so many defects lying within me. So, if I have to work out on removing the defects, removing the problems, I have to work on me first, not others. There are many good points in others. That is real insight. That is the real spiritual practice. When we see that there are some problems in myself, there are some defects. So, I will work out on myself to remove those. And when I remove, I become free from the dirt in my mind. I find, oh, it was not there. The whole world, they say, is our own reflection. When we are holy and pure, we start seeing this whole world as holy and pure. So Swami Vivekananda says, to a holy man, this whole world becomes like a heaven. And for a realized soul, when you have attained God, the whole world becomes God itself. So the thing is, heal thyself, it says, that's what it says is, practice goodness yourself. Try to remove your own defects, what you have. See deep into your own mind, and that is the only way when you can make yourself better. And when you heal yourself, when you become better, that is the greatest service to the society. Serving is in many ways. That reading was so nice. How this Sadanandaji was so effective in work. Where did he get that inspiration? From Swami Vivekananda. And is Swami Vivekananda saying that love for your country, don't strive, be ready to sacrifice, don't be afraid of plague. What is that? Just saying words? Not until he himself had that. Swami Vivekananda sacrificed everything that he had. Do you remember how when Sri Ramakrishna was sick and with cancer and having people were a little afraid, cancer was thought to be contagious, infectious, and he found his brother disciples were a little scared to go there because of family pressure, and if they get the cancer. Then what he did one day there was one gruel, that was the pudding that was fed to Sri Ramakrishna. He couldn't eat, there was liquid, that thing. Gruel was there. And Sri Ramakrishna wanted to eat it and he couldn't eat it fully. Something he vomited, something came, pus came in that, and it was lying there. There were other brother disciples. In front of all of them, he went there, grabbed that bowl of gruel, which was infected by Sri Ramakrishna's cancer, this thing, and drank that in front of all. He could have cancer. That was the sacrifice. Give up your life for this man. If it brings cancer, doesn't matter. If I die, doesn't matter. That person said, what is death? Let it come one day. Don't be afraid of even death. that. This Swami Vivekananda could say because he practiced that. And when he said that, it catches Sadananda, it catches another Ananda, it catches the whole world. Nivedita and so many people come forward to sacrifice their life for the sake of others. Sadananda was never afraid. And how he used to clean the dirty place where even scavengers could not go, those dirty places. And you see, when this Swami Vivekananda speaks in that way, and the people we see doing, we'll be very happy to hear, even in this, among us, are the people who really could do those things. There was some animal died somewhere near the house here. And it was died a few weeks ago, and it was degenerating, it was very bad smelling. Now who will come and clean that? And the smell was coming. So one of us volunteered. He or she went there, pulled that carcass, was just degenerating and was rotten, and maggots were there, and that he pulled and threw it just away. And nobody could do it. So this is what the heal thyself. If that person goes to his child, son or daughter and says, you should clean that, what is there? When the society is suffering, someone has to come forward. Then he had or she had the right to say, because he or she had practiced, he has or she has healed herself or himself. That's how when we practice and we say what we practice, that becomes powerful. Mon, Muk and Karma. The mouth, the speech, the mind and the action. When they are unison, the person becomes powerful. His words carry weight, and that's what is the meaning of this proverb found in the Bible. Physician, heal thyself. Practice yourself what you speak.